Welcome back. The African Transformation Movement, ATM, has filed papers in the High Court in Pretoria to review and set aside the acting public protector advocate Kholeka Gcaleka's report on Phala Phala. In June, the Chapter 9 institution cleared President Cyril Ramaphosa of any wrongdoing in the alleged robbery of foreign currency at his Limpopo game farm. And to talk more on this and recent developments, we are now joined in studio by leader of the ATM, Vuyolwethu Zungula. Vuyo, thank you so much for joining us here on the latest edition. Of course, today we understand that you have indeed filed papers to review and set aside that report from the acting public protector. Why?
Look, we can't allow a report that protects a president, whereas there's clear wrongdoing, to be kept as if, we are blind or we don't know anything as South Africans, because the office of a president, it is a very important office because it is a number one citizen, a person that is expected to be the chief defender of our constitution. Therefore, you cannot have a case whereby a person violates important sections of the constitution, but the public protector determines that that is not true. So what we've stated in our court papers, number one, that her definition of paid work is actually incorrect, because you can't confine the question of paid work to a salary and a person physically spending time at a farm. Secondly, on the process, you cannot have an investigation whereby you want to determine whether there's paid work without the tax records, because it is by the report of the acting public protector, there are no tax records that were sought for Mr. Ramaphosa and the close cooperation. And lastly, you cannot have an investigation and you do not investigate or you do not interview key witnesses. Key witnesses, the first one, it is the domestic worker. There's not even a written statement from the domestic worker. The second person, which is Mr. Ndlovu, who allegedly received the buyer and the money, there is only a written statement there, a written statement which would come in a form of, perhaps there's lawyers that wrote the statement for him, whereas the Constitutional Court previously ruled that an investigation by the public protector must be done with an open mind. It must be done in a manner that is inquisitorial. Therefore, you cannot allow a case whereby you do not get oral evidence from key witnesses. So that is, in short, the key elements of our court application.
And looking into the witnesses you want to be actually interviewed here, do you think that the public protector would come to a different conclusion had she actually interviewed these two people?
Look, the oral evidence of Mr. Ndlovu would allow the public protector to probe whether what he is saying it is actually what actually transpired, because a written statement, it is carefully drafted and there's going to be lawyers that draft for you. But when you are orally getting evidence from a person you are investigating, when a person answers, that gives you an opportunity to have follow-up questions that will actually probe the matter further. The question of the domestic worker, it cannot be that a domestic worker who is the center of the money actually being stolen, because it is the domestic worker that is alleged by Mr. Fraser that, number one, she saw the money, she informed the brothers, and there is an allegation that they were actually bribed by the president to keep quiet and conceal the theft. Therefore, it is critical that she must be interviewed, and that is why we believe that in the absence of such interviews of these two important people, that investigation was not done in the open mind spirit, and it was not inquisitorial in nature.
You also touched on the issue of tax records, but earlier this year we saw from SARS itself releasing a statement saying that Ramaphosa, the president of the country, is indeed tax compliant. At the same time, they also said that Phala Phala farm is also tax compliant. Why won't you accept that?
Look, the SARS investigation or the report from SARS do not state that Mr. Ramaphosa is engaged in paid work. It is the public protector that must do that investigation to determine if there's paid work. Now, you cannot want to determine if Mr. Ramaphosa is receiving money or is receiving any form of financial benefit from Tabanyoni whereas you do not have tax records. So our issue there is that how can she come to a determination that there is no income received by Mr. Ramaphosa without accessing the tax records that will detail the movement of money between the close cooperation and him as a person. And also there is in the report there's a statement about a soft loan that Tabanyoni, the close cooperation, is paying to Mr. Ramaphosa, and there is no evidence in the report that there's been any inquiry about this soft loan, whether the interest rate is above board, whether the payments that are made by the close cooperation to Mr. Ramaphosa are in line with the agreement between these two entities. Now, in the absence of such information, we cannot accept that determination that Mr. Ramaphosa does not receive any money from the close cooperation.
And do you think that results into the president receiving some sort of income from the actual farm?
Yes, the report states that he's currently receiving money in the form of interest payments. However, any person would need to interrogate whether the interest rate that Mr. Ramaphosa has charged that particular close cooperation, is it a market-related interest rate, to avoid a case whereby you have an inflated interest rate and you are going to say the money that is moving from the close cooperation to the person is a result of that particular loan, whereas that loan is actually concealing some of the monies that Mr. Ramaphosa is wanting to move between these two entities. However, in the absence of the scrutiny of that the records and the loan agreement, you cannot reach that determination.
And you know, one would say that looking into where we are going as a country, next year is the 2024 elections. One would say that this is part of your political campaign to garner votes for next year, and you simply won't accept that report coming out from the Public Protector's Office.
We are not doing this for votes. We are doing this in the best interest of our people. Our people deserve an upright president who will abide by the law, a president who will actually encourage citizens to be law-abiding. We can't accept a case whereby there's different laws for the ones with political power and the other ones without political power. Any normal or ordinary citizen, if they were found with more than 25,000 rands in cash, they would be arrested. It happened to someone from Toyando in Limpopo, and it did not happen to Mr. Ramaphosa. We cannot allow, as a party that is standing for such South African citizens, that we are going to be having people that are above the law, and we are going to have two sets of laws in our country, one for the rich and politically connected, and the other one for the poor. And what we are stating again as the ATM is that the report from a retired and reputable former Chief Justice stated that there is a case to answer. Therefore, that definition that was there from the case or from the side of the Chief Justice with regards to paid work, risk of conflict of interest, and all of those issues, it is something that one advocate falls short of, because that report that was done in Parliament, it was done by three senior legal people, whereas this one was done by only one advocate, Gcaleka. That is why we are going to fight to ensure that Mr. Ramaphosa is held accountable, because that is our role as members of Parliament, is to ensure that the executive is held accountable.
And if you fail at the High Court in Pretoria?
We are going to review up to the level of the Constitutional Court.
All right, Vuyolwethu Zungula, thank you so much for your time. That is Vuyolwethu Zungula, the leader of the ATM party there, just giving us his insight in terms of why they want the High Court in Pretoria to set aside and review the Public Protector's report.